What if Trump fails? It may seem unlikely now, but the history of American politics shows that no leader is ever completely secure. No matter how strong a government appears at the start, internal challenges, economic crises, and political divisions can turn a position of absolute power into a complete collapse. In this video, we will analyze 5 factors that could lead Trump to face major difficulties, and what that means for you. Because if this scenario becomes reality, the impact won't just be political. It could affect the economy, the job market, investments, and even your personal finances. More than just recognizing the warning signs of potential failure, you'll discover how to prepare for this shift and make the best decisions in uncertain times. So, if you want to stay ahead of events and avoid being caught off guard, make sure to watch until the end. And for those who want to dive deeper into this topic, I've left a list of essential books in the pinned comment that explain the political, economic, and strategic dynamics behind moments like this. Now, let's jump straight into the first factor that could jeopardize Trump's administration. 1. Political volatility. No leader is immune to the shifting tides of American politics, and Trump is no exception. In a country where polarization has never been this intense, voter loyalty can be unpredictable. Presidents who once seemed unshakable saw their power crumble rapidly, like Lyndon B. Johnson, who chose not to seek re-election amid the chaos of the Vietnam War, or Richard Nixon, who resigned following a scandal. Trump may be in a position of strength now, but that doesn't guarantee he will maintain control throughout his term. What makes today's political landscape unique is that the U.S. is more divided than ever. This creates a dangerous cycle. When one party is in power, the opposition gains strength and organizes to overthrow it in the next electoral cycle. We saw this in 2018, when Democrats took control of the House after 2 turbulent years under Trump, and again in 2022, when Republicans regained part of the government after Biden's policies caused dissatisfaction among certain groups. This constant back and forth proves that no leader can afford to be complacent, as a counterforce is always growing behind the scenes. Another crucial factor is that Trump is no longer the fresh face he was in 2016. Back then, he was the outsider, the businessman promising to disrupt traditional politics. Now he returns as someone with a track record, one that includes both accomplishments and controversies. That means he can't just sell promises, he must face scrutiny over his past administration. If issues like inflation, security, or economic instability escalate, his approval ratings could plummet quickly. American history proves that no president governs without challenges, and Trump will have to fight against this reality from day one. 2. Challenges in foreign relations. A president's foreign policy can be one of their greatest legacies, or their biggest vulnerability. Trump is returning to power in a world that looks very different from when he first took office in 2016. The war in Ukraine, the growing rivalry with China, and tensions in the Middle East have placed the U.S. in a delicate position where impulsive decisions could have serious consequences. During his first term, he weakened strategic alliances, questioned NATO, and took an unpredictable stance with foreign leaders. If he continues down this path, he could isolate the U.S. at a time when global stability is crucial. Additionally, Trump will need to balance his nationalist rhetoric with the reality of international agreements. Protectionist tariffs and aggressive trade policies could lead to retaliation, harming export-dependent industries like agriculture and technology. His stance against multilateral treaties could alienate key partners, forcing the U.S. to handle challenges alone that were previously shared with allies. If nations like the European Union or Japan lose trust in American predictability, they may seek alternatives, strengthening rivals like China and reducing U.S. global influence. Another critical point will be his relationship with adversaries. During his first term, Trump took a fluctuating approach with Vladimir Putin, while escalating the trade war with China. Now the situation is even more complex, and any sign of weakness or miscalculated confrontation could have severe consequences for both the economy and national security. If the U.S. loses credibility as a global mediator, It could struggle not only in diplomatic crises, but also in strategic negotiations affecting everything from supply chains to the value of the dollar. 3. Economic uncertainty and market reactions. The economy is one of the key factors that determine the success or failure of a government, and Trump will face a challenging landscape. The financial markets react sharply to economic policies, trade decisions, and political instability. A government marked by volatility can create uncertainty among investors and businesses. During his first term, tariffs imposed on China triggered stock market fluctuations, while tax cuts increased the federal deficit. If Trump takes a similar approach, the effects could be even more unpredictable, especially given an already fragile global economy. Trump's biggest risk is the direct impact of his decisions on voters' wallets. Protectionist tariffs could drive up the cost of basic goods, hurting consumers. If instability spreads to the banking sector or recession signals emerge, the Federal Reserve may be forced to raise interest rates, making loans and financing more expensive. This would affect everything from home and car financing to business investments. If the middle class and working Americans start feeling the financial strain, Trump's support could decline rapidly. Another critical factor is how political uncertainty impacts major corporations and investors. Companies seek predictability for long-term planning, and a government that constantly shifts its economic stance can create distrust. If key financial players start betting against the U.S. economy out of fear of instability, this could trigger a cascading effect, slowing growth and increasing the risk of an economic crisis. Trump may promise prosperity, but without a solid and well-structured economic plan, reality could be very different. 4. Governing challenges. Winning an election is one thing, governing is another challenge entirely. Even with congressional support, Trump will face institutional obstacles that could slow down the implementation of his agenda. Many of his proposals require complex negotiations and structural changes, but the American political system is designed to prevent rapid, unilateral transformations. Without a solid strategy for turning promises into concrete policies, his plans may become unfeasible, frustrating his base and limiting his ability to govern effectively. One of the biggest challenges will be internal divisions within his own administration. During his first term, Trump had record turnover among advisors and cabinet members, as well as frequent clashes with regulatory bodies and independent institutions. If this pattern repeats, it could create administrative instability, making it harder to execute public policies effectively. Governing requires coordination and strategic planning, and a fragmented administration could undermine even popular initiatives. Another critical issue will be his relationship with Congress. Even if Republicans control both houses, there are deep divisions between traditional conservatives and the more radical MAGA wing. If Trump pushes for overly extreme policies, he may face resistance from his own party, delaying or even blocking key parts of his agenda. In the U.S. system, no president governs alone, and without well-built coalitions, campaign promises can quickly turn into political frustrations. 5. The risks of overreach. An election victory can be interpreted as an absolute mandate for radical changes, but this assumption doesn't always match reality. Trump may believe that his return to power grants him unrestricted authority to advance his agenda, but governing without considering reactions can generate strong resistance. Many leaders have fallen into this trap, assuming that electoral support translates into total approval for every decision. If Trump oversteps certain limits, he risks alienating not just his opponents, but also moderate voters and members of his own party. The risk is even greater because the Republican Party is not a monolithic structure. There are traditional conservatives, business leaders concerned about economic stability, and figures more aligned with Trump's radical base. If Trump moves too far away from pragmatic sectors of the GOP, he could create internal divisions that make governing more difficult. Moreover, since he cannot run for re-election, this sets up a power struggle for the future of the MAGA movement, with different leaders vying to position themselves as Trump's rightful successor, which could lead to a spiral of internal radicalization. Another crucial factor is public reaction. Unpopular policies or actions perceived as authoritarian could spark protests. mobilize opposition, and even hurt Republicans in the midterm elections. If Trump fails to balance his strategy, he could turn his second term into a constant battle against mounting opposition, internal divisions, and institutional roadblocks. Overconfidence can be just as dangerous as uncertainty, and a government that ignores its own limitations can quickly become unsustainable. If Trump's administration faces challenges such as loss of international trust, it could lead to broken alliances and increased economic volatility. This means that the financial markets may become more unstable, making it essential to have a strong emergency fund, avoid high-cost debt, and build a solid financial protection strategy to weather uncertain times. Investors typically seek safer assets during instability. Historically, U.S. Treasury securities, treasuries, are considered a safe haven, as they are backed by the American government. But which ones are best suited for this scenario? If inflation is the main concern, Treasury inflation-protected securities, TIPS, offer protection against rising prices. If uncertainty is expected to persist for the long-term Treasury bonds, 10+ years, provide stability. For those looking for liquidity and short-term security, Treasury bills, T-bills, are a viable option. Meanwhile, investors seeking a balance between risk and return may consider Treasury notes, 2 to 5 years. Additionally, gold tends to rise in value during crises, as it is seen as a global reserve asset. Certain types of real estate investment trusts, REITs, particularly those focused on infrastructure and healthcare, often provide protection against inflation and market volatility. These investment strategies are widely discussed in reports from the Federal Reserve, World Gold Council, and National Association of Real Estate Investment Trusts, NARET. Another key factor is the relationship between politics and employment. Drastic political shifts can impact entire sectors of the economy, especially if there are diplomatic tensions or trade wars. Reports from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and Brookings Institution indicate that infrastructure sectors tend to receive government investments even during economic downturns. Studies from the U.S. Department of Energy and McKinsey & Company highlight that renewable energy remains a strategic growth industry, thanks to government incentives and the global shift towards sustainability. Additionally, cybersecurity, according to data from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, and the World Economic Forum, is one of the few industries that continues to expand regardless of economic conditions, as cyber threats persist in any scenario. If you're looking for long-term stability, these sectors may offer strategic opportunities. Now that we've examined the 5 key factors that could threaten Trump's presidency, the big question is, if this happens, how should you prepare? Regardless of your political stance, one thing is clear: political instability always has economic and social consequences. Understanding these changes before most people do can give you a huge advantage. And now, I want to hear from you. How do you think this scenario will unfold? Will Trump be able to navigate these challenges, or are these difficulties inevitable? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this content has helped you see the situation more clearly, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep up with more strategic analyses like this. See you in the next video.